They are watching you even when you think you are alone. They are listening without moving their lips. They are changing your thoughts without you noticing. You believe every decision you make is your own, but it is not. Someone has been planting seeds in your mind for years, and you have mistaken them for your own ideas. This is not magic. This is not a movie. This is psychology, and it is darker than you imagine. There are people who can walk into your life and within minutes know exactly how to control you. They can make you trust them without reason. They can make you doubt yourself. Even when you are right, they can push you toward choices that will destroy you, and you will still thank them for it. And the worst part is they do it without you realizing until it is too late. This is the silent war for your mind, and you are not prepared. You have been trained since childhood to obey invisible rules, rules that tell you when to speak, when to stay silent, when to smile, and when to hide your feelings. These rules are not for your benefit. They were designed to make you easy to manage, easy to manipulate, easy to break. Dark psychology is the study of human weakness and how to exploit it. It is the reason some people can walk into a room and own it without saying a word. It is the reason some toxic relationships last for years, while the victim swears they are in love. It is the reason some people become leaders and others become followers without ever questioning why the mind has doors that are locked for a reason. Dark psychology is about finding the keys and opening those doors, whether you want them open or not. You have probably experienced it already without knowing the friend who always gets you to do favors you do not have time for. The boss who makes you feel guilty for asking for a day off. The partner who convinces you every fight is your fault. They are not lucky or charming. They are using tactics that have been perfected over centuries. One of these tactics is called gaslighting. It is the art of making someone doubt their own reality. They will tell you you remembered wrong when you know you are right. They will insist they never said something when you can recall the exact moment. They did. They will twist facts until you begin to wonder if you are losing your mind. Gaslighting works because the human brain craves certainty and fears conflict. When someone confidently presents a version of reality that contradicts yours, your brain begins to question itself. You think maybe I misunderstood. Maybe I overreacted. Maybe it is my fault. Once that seed of doubt is planted, they can control the rest of the story. Another tactic is love bombing. It sounds sweet, but it is a weapon. This is when someone overwhelms you with attention, affection, and praise at the start of a relationship. They make you feel like you are the most important person in the world. Your brain releases dopamine and oxytocin, the chemicals of pleasure and bonding. You start associating them with happiness and safety. Then slowly they begin to withdraw that affection. You chase it, trying to get back to that first high, and in the process you give them more control over you. Love bombing is common in romantic relationships, but it is also used in cults, in politics, in marketing. The idea is to hook you emotionally before you notice the chains being wrapped around you. There is also the foot in the door technique. It starts with a small request, something so minor you barely think about it. Can you sign this petition? Can you lend me a pen? Can you watch my bag for a minute? Once you agree to the small thing, your brain registers you as a cooperative person. When the bigger request comes later, you are more likely to say yes because you want to remain consistent with your earlier choice. This tactic is so effective, it has been used to sell products, persuade voters, and even recruit people into dangerous groups. And yet most people never realize it is happening to them. The scariest thing about dark psychology is that the people using it are not always strangers. Sometimes they are friends, family, co-workers. Sometimes they believe they are helping you. Other times they know exactly what they are doing and enjoy the power it gives them. You may think you are too smart to be manipulated, but manipulation is not about intelligence. It is about exploiting human nature itself. Every brain has blind spots. Every person has triggers, and someone somewhere knows exactly how to pull yours. The first step to protecting yourself is to recognize the signs. The second step is to understand the motives behind them. And the third is to realize that anyone is capable of using these tactics, including you. Another tactic you might have faced is mirroring. Mirroring is when someone copies your body language, your tone, your words, your interests. It feels natural and comforting because humans are wired to trust those who are similar to them. In the beginning, it feels like you have met someone who truly understands you. They like the same music, they share your opinions, they use the same phrases, but this is often a calculated move to lower your defenses. Once you feel connected, you are more likely to share secrets to agree with them, to follow their lead. Mirroring is especially dangerous because it feels like genuine connection when in reality, it is manipulation in disguise. There is also negging. Negging is when someone gives you a backhanded compliment or subtle insult designed to make you insecure. They might say you are pretty for someone your age, or you are smart for someone who never went to college. It sounds like a compliment, but it is actually an attack on your self-esteem. When they lower your confidence, you subconsciously start seeking their approval to feel better about yourself. This gives them power. Guilt tripping is another common weapon. It is when someone makes you feel bad for not doing what they want. They might remind you of everything they have done for you. They might suggest you are selfish or ungrateful for setting boundaries. The goal is to make you agree to their demands, just to stop feeling guilty. Fear appeal works differently. It uses threats or warnings to influence your behavior. A partner might say, "If you leave me, I will hurt myself." A boss might say, "If you do not work late, we could all lose our jobs." It makes you feel like you have no choice but to comply. All of these tactics are effective because they use human psychology against itself. Our brains are wired to seek connection, to avoid conflict, to protect our self-image. Manipulators know this. They play on empathy, on fear, on the need to belong. They do not always attack directly. Sometimes they simply guide you toward the conclusion they want you to reach. And when you get there, you believe it was your idea all along. The truth is that most people will encounter multiple forms of dark psychology in their lifetime. Some will recognize it and fight back. Others will fall into the trap without ever realizing what happened. The question is not if someone will try to manipulate you. The question is whether you will see it before it is too late. The most dangerous manipulators are the ones who never reveal themselves. They do not shout or threaten or make obvious demands. They work in whispers and glances. They plant ideas like seeds and wait for them to grow. They let you believe you are acting freely, even when every move you make is a step they designed. And because they never leave fingerprints, you cannot prove they were ever there. Some of them do it for money. Some do it for power. Some do it just to see if they can. One of the oldest and most effective tools of dark psychology is isolation. If someone can separate you from your friends, your family, your support systems, they can rewrite your reality without interference. It starts small. They might suggest your friends do not really care about you. They might create small conflicts that make you uncomfortable in group settings. They might complain that your family is toxic and you should spend less time with them. Before you know it, you are alone. And when you are alone, their voice is the only one you hear. Another method is reframing. This is when someone takes an event or situation and changes the way you perceive it. If you are upset, they might tell you you are overreacting. If you are angry, they might tell you to be grateful because things could be worse. Reframing can be positive when used for personal growth, but in the wrong hands, it becomes a weapon that erases your right to feel what you feel. Then there is anchoring. Anchoring works by creating a strong association between a feeling and a specific trigger. A manipulator might always bring you gifts or compliments before asking for a favor. Your brain links them with positivity and is more likely to agree, or they might criticize you harshly, right before offering a solution that benefits them. Your brain learns to accept their guidance just to escape the discomfort. Anchoring can turn people into obedient followers without them ever realizing it. Then comes the fear of missing out. FOMO is not just a marketing trick. It is a psychological lever. If someone convinces you that an opportunity is rare and fleeting, you will rush to take it without questioning the terms. This is why scammers talk about limited time offers. It is why cults talk about being chosen. It is why manipulators convince you they are your only shot at love or success. Scarcity makes the mind panic, and a panicked mind makes poor decisions. Another layer of dark psychology is future faking. This is when someone makes promises about a future they have no intention of delivering. They might talk about the trips you will take, the house you will buy, the life you will share. They feed you visions so vivid that you ignore the emptiness of the present. By the time you realize those promises were empty, you have already invested your time, your money, your heart. By then they have taken what they wanted and are already setting their sights on the next target. Triangulation is another silent but deadly tactic. This is when someone brings a third person into your relationship to create competition or jealousy. They might compare you to someone else to make you work harder for their approval. They might gossip about you to another person and then tell you what was said to stir conflict. It keeps you off balance and desperate to win their favor. Dark psychology also thrives on selective honesty. A manipulator might tell you the truth sometimes just to make the lies harder to detect. They might confess to a small mistake so that you trust them with bigger things. They might share a personal secret to make you feel safe opening up. And the moment you do, they have ammunition they can use against you. The best manipulators never ask for control directly. They make you hand it to them willingly. Sometimes it is through charm. Sometimes it is through fear. But most often it is through the illusion of choice. They give you two options, both of which benefit them. And you walk away believing you made your own decision. The truth is that every human has weak points, and dark psychology is about mapping them. For some, it is the need to be loved. For others, it is the fear of being abandoned. For many, it is the craving for validation or the dread of failure. Once a manipulator finds your weakness, they no longer need to push hard. They can simply tap it and watch you move where they want you to go. The scariest part is that these tactics can be layered. Gaslighting can be paired with isolation. Love bombing can be followed by guilt tripping. Future faking can work alongside triangulation. By the time you see one tactic, you are already caught in several others. This is why some people stay in abusive relationships for years. They are not just trapped by love or fear. They are trapped by a web so intricate that cutting one thread changes nothing. Every exit is blocked by another strand. If you have ever wondered why you stayed, somewhere you knew was bad for you. This is the reason. You were not weak. You were under siege, and the siege was invisible. The only way to fight it is to learn to see it. But here is the problem. The moment you start seeing manipulation, the manipulators notice and they change their tactics. The game never stops. It just shifts. And if you are not ready for the next move, you will lose again. The most skilled manipulators know how to disappear into the background. They do not always want to be the center of attention. Sometimes they prefer to work from the shadows, letting others take the credit or the blame. When they operate this way, you rarely think of them as the one pulling the strings. Instead, you see them as a helper, a supporter, someone you could never suspect. But every favor they do for you has a hidden cost, and every word of advice is tilted just enough to benefit them. They will never tell you outright what they want. They will simply adjust the conditions until the only choice you have left is the one that serves them. It can be months before you notice the pattern, sometimes years. By then, They have woven themselves so tightly into your life that pulling them out feels impossible. One way they keep you trapped is through learned helplessness. If they can convince you that you are powerless to change your situation, you will stop trying. They might subtly sabotage your efforts so you fail, and then say they told you it would not work. They might remind you of every past mistake, every wrong decision, until you begin to doubt your ability to choose at all. And when you no longer trust yourself, you turn to them for guidance. That is exactly where they want you. Then there is the art of silent treatment. On the surface, it looks like harmless withdrawal, but in the hands of a manipulator, it becomes a weapon of control. They withhold attention, affection, or even basic communication until you give in to their demands. You find yourself apologizing just to break the silence even if you did nothing wrong. It teaches you to avoid conflict not by solving it, but by surrendering to their terms. The pattern is subtle but powerful. Every time you give in, the silence lasts a little longer next time until you learn to comply before it even starts. Another tool is projection. This is when a manipulator accuses you of the very behavior they are guilty of. If they are lying, they will call you dishonest. If they are cheating, they will accuse you of betrayal. Projection serves two purposes. It shifts attention away from their actions, and it puts you on the defensive. Now, instead of questioning them, you are busy defending yourself. By the time the argument ends, you have forgotten the original problem, and they have escaped accountability. The longer you are exposed to these tactics, the more your mind adapts to them. And adaptation is dangerous because it feels like normalcy. You start accepting things you once swore you never would. You convince yourself. This is just how relationships work. That is how the trap tightens without you realizing. Some manipulators also use intermittent reinforcement. They give you rewards unpredictably, so you never know when the next one is coming. This keeps you chasing their approval like a gambler chasing a win. Your brain becomes addicted to the cycle of hope and disappointment, and every rare moment of kindness feels so precious that you tolerate the cruelty just to keep it. This is the same method used in casinos and abusive relationships. It works because uncertainty is more addictive than certainty. Another layer is social proof. If they can convince others to see you in a certain light, it becomes harder for you to challenge their version of reality. They might spread rumors or carefully plant doubts among your friends or colleagues. By the time you try to defend yourself, the audience has already decided who you are, and when the world believes their story, you start to believe it. 2. This is the erosion of self-image. It does not happen in one blow. It happens in 1,000 small cuts. A joke here, a criticism there, a suggestion you should not trust your own judgment. Over time, your reflection in the mirror becomes someone you do not recognize. And in that moment, they have won. Because when you no longer believe in yourself, you will accept anyone who claims to believe in you, even if that person is the one destroying you. The terrifying truth about dark psychology is that it is not rare. It is everywhere. It is in the colleague who takes credit for your work, but frames it as teamwork. It is in the friend who only calls when they need something. It is in the partner who turns every argument into proof that you are ungrateful. It is in the family member who uses love as a leash. You will never live in a world without manipulation, but you can learn to see it before it takes root. You can learn to break the cycle before the chains are fully in place. And you must. Because the longer you wait, the harder it becomes to escape. If you think you have never been manipulated, you are wrong. You simply have not recognized it yet. And once you start to see it, you will notice it everywhere. In conversations, in advertisements, in politics, in relationships, you will feel like the veil has been ripped away. But seeing it is only the beginning, because some of the people who are using these tactics against you will not stop just because you have noticed. They will adapt. They will evolve. They will come at you in ways you have not prepared for yet. And in the next chapter, you will learn the one tactic they use that is almost impossible to defend against, the one that makes even the strongest minds bend, the one that can turn an enemy into a loyal follower without them ever realizing what happened. They call it the Trojan Gift. It arrives dressed as kindness. It looks like an opportunity. It feels like help. But hidden inside is the very thing that will undo you. This tactic is so powerful because it hides in plain sight. It plays on the one weakness no human being can fully remove: gratitude. When someone does something for you without asking for anything in return, your natural instinct is to trust them. Your guard drops. You feel safe. You tell yourself, this is different. But in the shadows, they are keeping score. The Trojan Gift works because human relationships are built on reciprocity. If I do something for you, you will feel an unspoken obligation to return the favor. Manipulators weaponize this instinct. They will give you something valuable without warning. They might help you out of a difficult situation. They might offer you resources, connections, information. They might simply show up when no one else would. You will not see it as a transaction. You will see it as generosity. And that is the point. Because when the day comes that they call in the favor, you will not feel like you are being manipulated. You will feel like you are repaying a debt. By the time you realize the cost, it is too late. You have already tied your own leash. This tactic is not new. Ancient rulers used it to turn rivals into allies. Warlords used it to make conquered people fight for them. Corporations use it when they offer free products that lead you into lifelong loyalty. Even in personal relationships, it appears as the friend who bails you out of trouble and then expects absolute loyalty forever. The Trojan Gift bypasses your defenses because it does not look like an attack. It feels like the opposite. But once you accept it, your choices are no longer entirely your own. The more they give, the deeper the hook sinks, and the cruelest manipulators will give. Not because they care, but because they know they can take more in return than they ever gave. You can tell yourself you owe them nothing. You can tell yourself you will say no when the time comes. But when that moment arrives, the weight of gratitude will crush your resolve. You will say yes, you will justify it, and then you will do it again and again. Until you are no longer sure where your will ends and theirs begins. The Trojan Gift is dangerous because it can turn enemies into allies without force. It can turn strangers into loyal soldiers without orders. It can even turn you into someone who defends the very person who is destroying you. That is the moment when the trap closes completely. Because if someone can get you to protect them from others, you will also protect them from yourself. Even if you suspect the truth, you will bury it to preserve the bond. Some people never escape it. They will go to their graves believing the person who used them was their greatest friend. But the Trojan Gift is only one part of the puzzle. To make it work, manipulators often combine it with something even more subtle: identity shaping. Identity shaping is when someone changes the way you see yourself so that you naturally make choices that serve their agenda. They do not tell you what to do directly. They tell you who you are. You are a loyal friend. You are a good son. You are someone who never gives up on people. You are someone who always keeps promises no matter what. These statements sound harmless, even flattering, but they are chains, because once you accept that identity, you will go to great lengths to protect it, even if protecting it means hurting yourself, even if it means sacrificing your own happiness. Manipulators know that people will betray their own needs before they will betray their identity, if they can. Define who you are. They do not need to control what you do. You will do it yourself. This is why identity shaping works so well with the Trojan Gift. First, they give you something that makes you feel indebted, then they define you in a way that makes repaying that debt seem like proof of your character. You will not just feel like you are helping them. You will feel like you are proving you are the person you believe yourself to be. And because human beings fight to the death to protect their identity, you will defend them even when logic tells you to run. In the wrong hands, this combination can build empires of loyalty that no amount of reason can break. Once they have intertwined gratitude and identity shaping, they often add another layer: fear of loss. Humans are wired to avoid loss more than they are to seek gain. A manipulator exploits this by making you believe that saying no will cost you more than saying yes. You will imagine losing their approval, losing their friendship, losing the imagined future they promised. Even when part of you knows you are being used, the fear makes you comply. This tactic works because your brain reacts before your conscious mind can intervene. You feel a tension in your chest, your stomach. Knots your throat tightens, and the first impulse is always to obey the unspoken rules. The combination of gratitude, identity shaping, and fear of loss creates what I call the psychological cage. You may have freedom on paper, you may be able to walk away physically, but mentally, your choices are narrowed by invisible bars. You do not notice them until you try to escape and realize your own mind is arguing against you. Manipulators often reinforce the cage with subtle punishments and rewards. They might withdraw affection for a small infraction or smile warmly when you comply. Your brain starts to predict the pattern and adapts. Soon, you act in ways that guarantee the reward and avoid the punishment automatically. Without conscious thought, you are walking the path they paved for you. It is almost impossible to see because it feels like normal life. You might say to yourself, "I always make my own choices." But the choices you make have been filtered through a lifetime of tiny manipulations. And the Trojan Gift is only the beginning. Another tactic they use alongside it is selective empathy. They show understanding of your feelings only when it serves them. They will console you in a crisis to gain trust. They will listen to your fears, to learn your vulnerabilities. They will appear to be your ally, but only to gather intelligence. Every confession you make strengthens their position, and every tear you shed becomes a lever they can pull later. Then comes the tactic of social engineering. They manipulate the environment around you to guide decisions. A manipulative colleague may set up meetings, so you always feel pressured. A manipulative partner may organize social situations that highlight your insecurities. Even subtle cues like tone of voice, timing of words, and body language are used to control your responses. You think you are reacting freely, but you are responding to a carefully constructed setup. They are architects of your behavior without laying a single brick you can see. And yet you feel responsible for everything that happens. That is the brilliance of their design. Another dark strategy is information control. They determine what you know and what you do not. They feed you just enough truth to make you feel informed, and hide the rest so you never see the full picture. By controlling information, they control perception. And once they control perception, they control reality. This is why victims often defend manipulators, because their understanding of reality is skewed in favor of the manipulator. Even evidence cannot easily break the pattern because the brain trusts the narrative it has been given over new data. The final layer they often add is emotional flooding. They overwhelm you with intense feelings, fear, guilt, euphoria, shame. When emotions run high, the rational mind shuts down. Your prefrontal cortex, responsible for reasoning and decision-making, goes offline, and in that state you act almost instinctively. Manipulators time these floods strategically. They create moments when your defenses are lowest. A compliment after criticism, a gift after an argument, a smile after withdrawal. Each wave builds upon the last until you are completely immersed. By the time you recognize the manipulation, the cycle has become a habit, and breaking it requires more than insight. It requires retraining your instincts. You must unlearn reactions that were drilled into you through subtle, repeated exposure. It is not easy, it is not quick, and it is why most people never escape the control of a skilled manipulator. Even those who understand the tactics can still fall prey if their vulnerabilities are exploited at the right time. This is the power of the Trojan Gift combined with identity shaping, fear of loss, selective empathy, social engineering, information control, and emotional flooding. It is a system designed to take your freedom and make you complicit in your own manipulation. And the truly terrifying part is that manipulators are everywhere. You might be sitting next to one right now, listening to them speak, sharing a laugh, sharing a secret, thinking you are safe, and yet by the time you realize the truth, they have already placed the pieces in motion. The mind that can manipulate, in this way, is patient and calculating. They do not rush, they do not overreach. They wait for you to walk willingly into the cage. Every choice you make feels natural. Every decision seems your own, and that is how the strongest minds bend. In the next part, you will discover the techniques to break free from this cage, how to recognize the invisible chains before they take hold, and how to reclaim your mind even when the manipulator is still standing beside you. But for now, remember this. The moment someone gives you something without asking for anything in return, pause, question, and watch for the threads that may be attached to that gift. The first step to reclaiming your mind is awareness. You must learn to recognize the signs. Before they become habits, manipulation rarely announces itself. It sneaks in through small gestures and subtle words. By the time you feel uncomfortable, it has already taken root. Awareness begins with observation. Notice patterns in behavior. Notice how certain people make you feel. Notice how your mood shifts after interactions. Pay attention to the moments you feel obligated, guilty, or anxious without reason. These are clues. They point to manipulation before it solidifies. The second step is setting boundaries. Boundaries are not walls. They are signals. They tell others where your limits lie. A manipulator will test these limits repeatedly. They will push, prod, and probe for weaknesses. You must respond consistently. Every time you enforce a boundary, your mind strengthens. Every time you fail, it weakens. Boundaries are your first line of defense. The third strategy is reclaiming choice. Manipulators thrive when you feel trapped. They take advantage of decisions you believe are yours. Start small. Make conscious choices about minor aspects of your life. What you eat, when you sleep, how you spend free time. Every decision you take intentionally trains your mind to resist external control. As your confidence grows, you can tackle larger decisions. The fourth step is journaling. Writing your thoughts and experiences down helps separate perception from manipulation. When you see patterns on paper, you can analyze them objectively. You can trace emotional waves, see the triggers, and spot recurring tactics. Journaling transforms scattered feelings into structured insight. It becomes a map to navigate complex relationships. Another tactic is seeking external perspectives. Manipulation often thrives in isolation. Talk to friends, mentors, or professionals. Ask questions about situations that made you feel unsettled. Fresh eyes can see what your mind has normalized. You do not have to face manipulation alone. Collective insight is stronger than individual blind spots. The next technique is emotional distancing. You do not have to detach completely, but you must create a space between your immediate emotional reaction and your response. Pause before answering. Consider the intent behind words. Evaluate the long-term impact of actions. This momentary distance can prevent automatic compliance. Manipulators rely on impulsive reactions. Interrupting that pattern weakens their influence. Another critical method is practicing assertive communication. Speak your truth clearly. State your needs without apology. Do not justify every boundary or decision. Assertiveness signals that you are aware and unwilling to be coerced. It shifts the dynamic from passive to active. A simple, "I cannot do that," said confidently, can dismantle weeks of subtle manipulation. Next is reinforcing your self-image. Manipulators exploit insecurities and identity gaps. Reconnect with your strengths, acknowledge achievements, celebrate independence. The stronger your sense of self, the less vulnerable you are. When you know who you are less likely to accept definitions from others. Cognitive reframing is also a powerful tool. Interpret events from multiple perspectives. Challenge assumptions. Ask yourself if guilt or fear is justified or a manufactured response. Reframing allows you to distinguish reality from manipulation. Another defense is pattern recognition. Track repeated behaviors. If someone consistently triggers the same feelings, questions, or actions, it is not coincidence. Manipulation thrives on repetition. Recognizing the pattern breaks the cycle. Mindfulness meditation enhances this skill. By observing thoughts without judgment, you can detect intrusive influences before they take control. Your mind becomes aware of subtle emotional nudges, and you regain authority over reactions. Learning to say no is a cornerstone. No is not rude. No is not weak. No is a declaration of self-control. Every time you say no without guilt, you reclaim a fraction of freedom. Visualization techniques can strengthen this. Imagine yourself making decisions under pressure. Picture yourself resisting guilt and fear. The mind rehearses success and builds resilience. Accountability partners also help. Share your experiences with someone you trust. Let them help you evaluate situations objectively. They can point out manipulative patterns that are invisible to you. Building a network of support reduces isolation. The more connected you are, the harder it is for manipulators to control you. Educating yourself about psychological tactics is another defense. Learn about gaslighting, love bombing, foot in the door, mirroring, negging, guilt-tripping, fear appeals, the Trojan Gift, identity, shaping, emotional flooding, social engineering, and information control. The more you understand, the easier it is to recognize the tactics in real life. Knowledge transforms fear into strategy. Then comes the practice of slow decision-making manipulators. Rely on urgency. They pressure you to act quickly. Every time you slow down, analyze, and weigh options, you take back power. Your brain learns that not every decision is immediate, and manipulators lose control over timing. Self-care is another subtle but critical defense. Adequate sleep, nutrition, exercise, and relaxation. Maintain cognitive clarity. A tired mind is easier to manipulate. A healthy mind resists coercion more effectively. Documenting interactions is often underrated. Emails, texts, and notes create an objective record. Manipulators rely on confusion and selective memory. Records protect you and provide leverage if tactics escalate. Practice empathy carefully. Understand the motives behind behavior without excusing harm. Recognizing why someone acts manipulatively allows you to respond strategically rather than reactively. Finally, internal validation is paramount. You must learn to rely on your own judgment and self-worth. External praise and approval will always be tempting, but a grounded internal compass ensures you are not swayed by deceptive tactics. When combined, these strategies form a defense system. Awareness, boundaries, choice, journaling, external perspective, emotional distancing, assertive communication, self-image reinforcement, cognitive reframing, pattern recognition, mindfulness, saying no, visualization, accountability partners, education, slow decision-making, self-care, documentation, careful empathy, and internal validation. Each layer strengthens your resistance. The more consistently you apply these, the harder it becomes for manipulators to infiltrate your mind. Even the most sophisticated tactics like the Trojan Gift lose power. Your mind becomes a fortress, and when you master these defenses, you regain the freedom manipulators sought to. Still, the journey is not easy. It requires discipline, reflection, and constant vigilance. But every step forward weakens the grip of manipulation. By the end of this part, you understand that defense is not about avoiding people. It is about reclaiming authority over your own thoughts, emotions, and actions. And the next part will show you how manipulators adapt when defenses are strong, how they evolve tactics to bypass even the most prepared minds. You will learn what to anticipate, how to stay ahead, and the strategies that can turn the tables completely. Skilled manipulators do not give up when you resist. They adapt, evolve, and observe. Every defense you create is analyzed, studied, and used against you. If one approach fails, another is quietly deployed. They learn your patterns and adjust their tactics to bypass even the most vigilant mind. Advanced psychological warfare is not about brute force. It is about subtle pressure over time. They exploit fatigue, complacency, and distraction. Even the strongest defenses can be weakened if vigilance is inconsistent. They study your reactions, noting what triggers anxiety, doubt, or guilt. A smile at the right moment, a carefully worded phrase, a delayed response. These become weapons in their arsenal. One of their most dangerous techniques is called controlled chaos. They create minor disruptions in your environment or routine. Small conflicts, unexpected changes, or confusing instructions. Nothing major, just enough to destabilize your emotional balance. While you are distracted trying to restore order, they move in with influence. Controlled chaos forces you to operate on instinct rather than reason, and instinct can be manipulated more easily than conscious thought. They also employ what is called psychological triangulation. By manipulating multiple people in your life simultaneously, they create competition, confusion, and loyalty conflicts. They may share selective information with one person and contradictory information with another. They watch as your relationships shift, as trust erodes, and as your social map becomes theirs to control. Triangulation is devastating because it isolates you without direct confrontation. You feel surrounded, even trapped, yet you cannot point to a clear source of threat. They are masters of timing. Every tactic is deployed when you are least prepared. During moments of emotional vulnerability, stress, or fatigue. They anticipate your weaknesses and exploit them strategically. Manipulators also practice incremental conditioning. Small acts of coercion, persuasion, or influence are repeated consistently. Over time, these small steps accumulate into significant behavioral changes. By the time you notice the pattern, your mind has already adapted to comply. Incremental conditioning exploits the human tendency to rationalize small compromises. Another advanced technique is emotional mirroring with deception. They reflect your emotions and desires back to you, making you feel deeply understood. But simultaneously, they twist the reflection to subtly guide you toward decisions that benefit them. It is intimacy weaponized. You feel connection while they control direction. Manipulators exploit cognitive biases constantly. Confirmation bias, anchoring, scarcity, and authority all become tools. They present information in a way that reinforces your pre-existing beliefs, making you less likely to question them. They create artificial scarcity to induce panic decisions. They establish perceived authority to discourage doubt. Your mind becomes predictably reactive, and they are always a step ahead. They also engage in strategic withdrawal. After an intense interaction, they disappear, leaving you anxious, seeking their return. Absence increases perceived value and power. You internalize their presence as essential, giving them indirect control over your emotional state. Gaslighting becomes more sophisticated at this level. They introduce inconsistencies in stories, events, and memories, making you question not just your judgment, but your perception of reality itself. Every interaction is recorded in your memory with doubt attached. Even confident individuals begin second-guessing themselves. They employ reward and punishment cycles with extreme precision. Praise, recognition, or affection is granted for compliance. Withdrawal, criticism, or coldness is applied for resistance. Your mind adapts to the cycles, seeking the positive reinforcement and avoiding the negative, effectively training yourself to behave according to their plan. Manipulators often use what psychologists call fear projection. They imply consequences that may never happen, but feel immediate and threatening. Fear suppresses rational thinking and motivates preemptive compliance. You act to avoid imagined disasters rather than to pursue actual desires. They combine this with information gating. Selective truth is shared while critical details are withheld. You perceive transparency, but your understanding is incomplete. Without full information, every choice you make is guided, whether consciously or unconsciously. Identity erosion is another subtle but powerful method. They slowly undermine your self-concept, reshaping your beliefs about your abilities, morals, or priorities. You begin to align decisions with their narrative, believing it is your own reasoned choice. This works hand in hand with social reinforcement. They subtly influence your network, ensuring that peers and allies unknowingly echo their narrative. Your social world begins to validate the manipulation without your conscious awareness. Advanced manipulators are patient beyond comprehension. They operate over months, even years. Every interaction, every word, every gesture is measured. Their patience is a weapon. They are not rushed by your awareness or resistance. They adapt continuously, shifting strategies until you are exhausted. Mental fatigue is their ally. When your mind is tired, your defenses weaken. Impulse replaces reason, and subtle cues regain control. They also use contextual framing. They present information in a way that subtly guides your interpretation. By shaping context, they guide your conclusions without forcing you. Your logical mind feels autonomous, but the manipulator controls the starting conditions. Another dangerous method is parallel influence. They manipulate multiple facets of your life simultaneously: emotional, social, professional, and personal. You are pulled in conflicting directions, unable to stabilize. Every decision seems complex and urgent, and in that chaos, their influence thrives. They know when to retreat and when to advance. They read your emotional signals, behavioral cues, and decision patterns. Every moment becomes an opportunity for subtle intervention. Even the most disciplined defenses from Part 3 can be stressed under these conditions. This is why awareness must be constant, boundaries must be enforced consistently, and self-validation must remain strong. They use the illusion of choice masterfully. You are presented with options that seem free, but each choice ultimately leads to the same outcome they desire. Your autonomy is preserved in appearance, but not in effect. The combination of these advanced tactics forms a web that is almost invisible. You may recognize one or two methods, but rarely the entire system. And it is this systemic manipulation that gives them almost total control without overt force. You may ask yourself how to survive or even escape such sophisticated influence. The answer lies in mastering vigilance, understanding, and anticipation. By predicting their moves, strengthening internal resilience, and maintaining external perspective, you reclaim agency. The next part will dive into real-life case studies, showing exactly how these strategies play. Out in relationships, workplaces, and social systems, you will see how ordinary individuals were drawn into control and how they fought back. It will be both cautionary and instructive. By observing patterns in the real world, you will gain practical insight into countering even the most advanced manipulation. In real life, manipulation rarely looks dramatic. It is subtle, hidden in everyday interactions. Consider a workplace scenario. A colleague consistently offers to help with projects. They smile warmly, share coffee, and offer advice. You trust them. You begin to rely on their input more than your own. Small suggestions become decisions you follow unquestioningly. Before long, promotions, credit, and recognition are subtly influenced by their guidance. They may not even take direct credit, but your success and failures are quietly steered by their influence. Now imagine this at home. A partner showers affection and gifts at unpredictable intervals. They are charming, attentive, seemingly devoted. You feel grateful, indebted, and loyal. Over time, their minor criticisms and controlling suggestions shape your behavior. You defend them to friends and family, believing it is natural love. By the time you realize the pattern, your choices, emotions, and routines have already aligned with their desires. In more extreme cases, cults use these tactics collectively. Members are isolated, socially conditioned, and emotionally reinforced. Gratitude, identity shaping, fear of loss, and intermittent rewards combine to produce near-total psychological compliance. Individuals believe every decision is their own, yet every thought is guided by unseen hands. Consider historical examples. Political leaders have exploited gratitude and loyalty for power. Advisors, courtiers, and citizens unknowingly enabled manipulation through fear, trust, and reward cycles. Wars have been won with invisible influence, not swords. Even in families, subtle control shapes inheritance, career paths, and alliances. Manipulation can appear in friendships too. Someone who seems helpful may guide decisions, introduce conflicts, or alter perceptions without obvious confrontation. Every compliment, gift, or shared secret becomes a lever to influence behavior. Now, how do people break free? The first step is recognition. In case studies, survivors often describe a moment of clarity. A repeated pattern finally clicks. They realize the web of influence. They document events, review interactions, and validate feelings against objective. Evidence journaling and discussion with trusted outsiders often reveal the truth. Next is establishing firm boundaries. One woman described how she confronted a manipulative friend with consistent limits. She no longer allowed unsolicited advice. She stopped engaging in guilt-based obligations. She monitored her own reactions and consciously chose independence. Another person, trapped in an emotionally controlling romantic relationship, used slow withdrawal and controlled exposure. They limited interactions, gradually reclaimed decision-making authority, and rebuilt their social network. Case studies reveal a common principle. Repeated, consistent reinforcement of autonomy works. You cannot break free in a single confrontation. It requires a series of deliberate actions to retrain the mind. Survivors also report the power of emotional awareness, noticing when gratitude, guilt, or fear is being weaponized helps interrupt automatic compliance. This awareness allows you to pause, reflect, and choose deliberately. External validation is critical too. Talking to mentors, counselors, or friends provides a perspective. Outside the manipulator's influence, it confirms intuition and strengthens confidence. Assertive communication is another recurring theme. Clearly stating needs, refusing unwarranted demands, and standing firm against subtle pressure gradually erodes control. Real-life examples show that manipulators often escalate tactics when resistance strengthens. They may increase rewards, threats, or emotional intensity. Recognizing escalation patterns is essential. Counter strategies must adapt dynamically. One common approach is gradual disengagement. Reduce dependence on the manipulator in small increments. Handle minor decisions independently. First, then larger ones. Each success reinforces autonomy. Another technique is cognitive reframing. Instead of seeing interactions as personal obligations, analyze motives objectively. Separate emotional reactions from factual events. This reduces vulnerability to guilt and fear. Manipulation. Mindfulness and meditation help survivors maintain emotional distance. Observing thoughts without reacting automatically prevents impulsive compliance. Documenting interactions is crucial. Records create clarity. Manipulators rely on selective memory and confusion, a detailed log of events. Gifts, conversations, and promises protects against deceit. Visualization is another technique. Mentally rehearsing resistance to common manipulation patterns strengthens confidence. When real situations arise, responses become more deliberate. Case. Studies also highlight the importance of self-care, mental clarity, physical health, and rest bolster cognitive defenses. Fatigue increases susceptibility to influence. Support networks are vital. Friends, family, and mentors provide feedback and emotional stability. They reduce isolation, a key vulnerability manipulators exploit. Education about psychological tactics equips survivors with recognition tools, understanding gaslighting, triangulation, identity shaping, emotional flooding, and advanced social engineering makes them predictable. Survivors report that even knowing one tactic can prevent months of subtle influence. They practice saying no consistently. They learn to validate their own decisions internally. They rebuild their identity independently of external reinforcement. Combining these strategies creates a robust defense system. Survivors describe a sense of regained freedom, clarity, and empowerment. They reclaim control over decisions, emotions, and social dynamics. Advanced manipulators may attempt to adapt, but a mind trained in vigilance, awareness, and deliberate choice is resilient. Even sophisticated tactics like the Trojan Gift lose efficacy. Real-life examples show gradual, consistent action works better than confrontation or avoidance alone. By applying awareness, boundaries, journaling, assertive communication, emotional distance, cognitive reframing, mindfulness, visualization, external validation, self-care, and pattern recognition, individuals regain control. These steps are not instantaneous. They require persistence, reflection, and strategy, but history and contemporary accounts confirm their effectiveness. Those who follow these principles not only escape manipulation, they often gain the ability to recognize and help others trapped in similar webs. The journey from manipulation to mastery is both protective and transformative. By understanding tactics, observing patterns, and implementing counter-strategies, you turn knowledge into freedom, and the final part will synthesize everything. It will provide an overarching guide from initial awareness to advanced defense, including the psychological principles, real-life applications, and ultimate strategies for total autonomy. Part 6 will close the cycle, offering a comprehensive map to recognize, resist, and recover from dark psychology. It will reveal the final lessons manipulators never want you to know. It will show how ordinary people can reclaim their minds, their choices, and their lives. By the time you reach this stage, you understand the anatomy of manipulation. You have seen the Trojan Gift, identity shaping, emotional flooding, social engineering, gaslighting, triangulation, information control, and advanced psychological warfare. You have learned how gratitude, fear, and guilt can be weaponized. You have seen real-life examples and case studies. Now it is time to synthesize all of these lessons into a complete framework for defense. The first principle is constant. Awareness observe patterns. reactions, and behaviors without judgment. Notice when obligations are implied, when decisions are guided, when emotions are stirred artificially. Awareness is your first shield, your first line of defense. The second principle is consistent boundary. Setting boundaries are not optional. They must be enforced daily. Every exception weakens the defense. Clear limits on emotional, social, and practical interactions signal that manipulation will not be tolerated. Third is deliberate choice. Train yourself to make conscious decisions, even in small matters. Every choice is a chance to reclaim agency, independent decision-making. In minor areas builds the muscles for larger ones. Fourth is documentation. Journals, logs, and records of interactions provide clarity and evidence. They protect against selective memory and gaslighting. Documentation becomes a tool to validate reality against deception. Fifth is external perspective. Mentors, friends, or counselors help. Detect manipulative patterns you may overlook. Isolation is the manipulator's ally. Outside input breaks the illusion of singular control. Sixth is assertive communication. Speak clearly, set expectations, and refuse unwarranted obligations. Assertiveness erodes subtle influence and signals mental sovereignty. Seventh is emotional resilience. Mindfulness, meditation, and emotional observation prevent impulsive reactions. Distance between stimulus and response allows deliberate choices. Eighth is internal validation. Trust your judgment, affirm your identity, and rely on self-worth. Manipulators seek to replace your internal compass with their own narrative. Internal validation restores authority over decisions and feelings. Ninth is cognitive reframing. Analyze interactions objectively. Separate perception from emotion. Challenge guilt, fear, and fabricated obligations. Reframing converts emotional traps into neutral observations. 10th is self-care. A healthy mind resists influence. Adequate rest. Nutrition, exercise, and mental exercises strengthen cognitive defenses. 11th is gradual disengagement. Reclaim autonomy incrementally. Handle minor decisions independently, then larger ones. Each success reinforces agency and reduces dependency. 12th is pattern recognition. Track recurring behaviors, recognize escalation, timing, and reward punishment cycles. Every pattern identified reduces the manipulator's power. 13th is visualization. Mentally rehearse, resisting manipulation. Prepared minds act deliberately. 14th is controlled exposure. Limit interaction strategically to reduce influence without abrupt confrontation. 15th is social reinforcement. Build a supportive network that validates reality and reduces isolation. Every ally is a barrier to covert influence. 16th is anticipatory planning. Predict. Likely manipulative moves, strategize responses in advance. Preparedness weakens tactical surprise. 17th is education. Learn about psychological tactics continuously. Knowledge transforms fear into understanding. 18th is resilience under escalation. Manipulators test limits, strengthen mental endurance. To resist increasingly intense pressure. 19th is situational awareness. Recognize environmental manipulation, contextual framing, and social cues. Spatial and social awareness enhance cognitive defenses. 20th is synthesis. Combine all strategies into a coherent personal system. Each defense layer supports the others. Awareness, boundaries, choice, documentation, external. Perspective, assertiveness, emotional resilience, internal validation, cognitive reframing, self-care, gradual disengagement, pattern recognition, visualization, controlled exposure, social reinforcement, anticipatory planning, education, resilience. Under escalation, situational awareness, all integrate into a mental fortress. By practicing these consistently, manipulators lose their advantage. Your mind regains sovereignty, autonomy, and clarity. The final lesson is adaptability. Manipulators evolve, tactics shift, and new forms of influence appear. You must remain vigilant, reflective, and flexible. Defense is continuous, not static. By integrating every principle, you become a step ahead, capable of recognizing manipulation before it embeds. You will notice subtle cues instantly. You will evaluate motives and anticipate escalation. You will respond deliberately, not react impulsively. This cumulative mastery transforms vulnerability into power. From awareness to ultimate defense, you reclaim the very essence of choice. No gift, no praise, no fear can coerce you into submission. By mastering these principles, ordinary people become immune to sophisticated psychological tactics, and the most extraordinary truth emerges. The more you understand manipulation, the less it frightens you. The more it empowers you. You learn to observe without being drawn in, to respond without yielding, to act without fear, and to live with clarity and autonomy. This is the culmination of everything. The journey through dark psychology reveals both the depth of human influence and the heights of human resilience. From the first subtle gift to the advanced psychological warfare, every tactic has been exposed, every vulnerability addressed, every defense laid out. You now possess the knowledge, the strategies, and the insight to navigate any manipulation. And in this mastery, you find not only protection, but freedom. Freedom from unseen chains, freedom to act consciously, freedom to live authentically. And remember this final truth. Those who understand manipulation do not become cynical. They become aware, vigilant, and empowered. They respect human complexity, anticipate influence, and reclaim choice. They live not as victims, but as architects of their own mind. And in this understanding, the ultimate victory is found, because knowledge is power, awareness is freedom, and the human mind, once trained and fortified, is impossible to dominate.